and welcome to Time to Process. This is my friend Marin. I love you so much, by the way. I'm so happy that you're here. You guys, Marin is a client, but also a great friend, and she is a landscape architect. And you know how much I love my yard. I've clearly talked immensely about my zinnias and all of my plants. So I'm super excited to have her on today so we can chit chat about things. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I live in Lehigh right now. I'm a mom of two young kids.
Yes, they're so cute.
They are fun. I work right now as a landscape designer, which, not to correct you, but I'm not technically an architect.
Oh my gosh, no, please correct me. Okay, I don't think I realized that there was like a difference.
Yeah, a lot of people don't, and it's really just down to more schooling that an architect has to go through, and then they have to get licensed and take a test.
Oh my gosh, okay, wait. So what is the delineation though? Like what do you do similar things, or when you're designing, you're doing more plants, and an architect, you're doing more layout?
So technically, in a residential setting, a designer can do just as much as an architect, except when it comes to retaining and drainage. So they just have special qualifications in those areas. And on commercial projects, a lot of the time it does require an architect's stamp.
Yeah.
That they have to have done all the math and all the engineering. And stuff like that to be able to come up with those projects. So I'm
that totally makes sense. I'm so glad that you said that because I didn't know that there was a difference. Yeah. But now that you say that, because my husband builds restaurants, I hear a lot about engineers and architects and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, now that you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
So yes, landscape designer.
Landscape designer. Yep. Amazing. I love it.
Some of my favorite things to do, I love to go boating in the summer.
Yes.
I just landed my first 360 on the wake surfing.
Did you really?
This summer, yes.
Oh my gosh. Actually, wait, I think, did you post a video?
I did,
okay, I was like, I think maybe I did see
highlight of year 33 for me, being able to land that.
That is impressive at 33 though.
Yep. And as you know, my
family
after 2 kids
loves
Lake Powell, so we go down there every year, and I get some time to practice. But yeah.
And you're a beach gal too.
I do love the beach. Yes. I also love the forests and the mountains and more all so because my husband like drives me up there sometimes. But yes, nature in general.
Yes.
But in terms of just relaxing, I prefer a beach.
Okay. Well, was it this last year that you set a goal that you're like, I want to be on a beach every quarter of the whole year?
Well, so it was last year. Okay. I set a goal to have my feet touch sand once a month. And my friend, when I was struggling during one of the months, my friend offered her sandbox. So I had to take that up, and I don't think I made every single month, but I did a pretty good job, and it was something just for me to look forward to and make me happy. And,
I am really impressed. I wish I could do that. And we love Florida. Her, so I do her mom's hair as well. Love Melanie. Talk about how much your dad loves Round John.
Yes.
We love Round John. Yes. Anyway, but we really hope to have a house like in Florida one day. That's our dream. So I 100%. In fact, how do we get the sand from Florida into a sandbox here?
Yes.
I would feel so much better about life if that was the case.
If you knew that was Florida sand in your backyard.
But I could put my feet in it and I would be okay with it.
Yep.
Oh man, I love it. Okay, so that's your hobbies. What else besides that? You said you love Lake Powell. You love doing is it wake surfing? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. So it's
because you go on the surfboard and you let go, and then you're just doing it.
The boat creates a wave behind it so that you can surf on the board behind the boat.
Okay. I think I've only tried that once. I feel like I can always get up on a wakeboard, but it's the letting go.
Yeah.
That is, I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know how to stay up and continue with the momentum of, like you said, the wave.
It takes practice, but it's so much fun to learn, and it's not like wakeboarding where when you fall and you smack it hurts so bad. It's you're going at a slower pace, and if you fall, no one gets hurt.
Okay, we might need to share your video.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
To show that you're 33. 2 kids, and you just did your first 360. That's amazing. Yeah. Were your siblings really impressed?
I'd like to think so. Some of them can already do it. It's multiple tricks on the board.
Yeah.
So it was just a personal PR
Okay.
that I was able to do that.
Well, I think you're amazing anyway, because I for sure couldn't do that. Even at 33, I couldn't do that. So
yeah, it's
good work.
Yeah. Another thing I picked up last year, I go to a gym and they have like group fitness classes.
Oh, yeah.
And they started offering aerial silk classes.
Stop!
Which was so fun to just kind of, like, I was so uncomfortable, threw myself out there, started doing it, and it turned out to be so much fun.
Okay, and like the heights doesn't freak you out?
So they're not.
Like, do you don't feel like you're going up too high?
At first, a little bit, but then you get used to it. Like you get used to the height and the way that it's like a hammock that they hang instead of just like you've probably seen, I don't know, at the circus where they hang the silks from the ceiling. It's just like two different silks. This one's like a hammock, so you can kind of lay in it too and do a bunch of different things.
Because that's all I'm thinking is like you like wrap it around your legs multiple times and then you like spin out of it.
Yeah, they do a lot of spinning that I don't do. So the hammock doesn't spin, but like they do have certain silks that the professionals will set up and they will like spin and do all the fun tricks.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, I'm just proud that I can now go upside down and do some fun little moves that way. But that's another thing that I've enjoyed doing. I can't do it anymore. I had some hip issues come up with some mobility there.
Yeah.
But this last year, that's something that I've tried.
You're like blowing my mind right now. That is like, that's crazy. I know like my nieces have done that kind of stuff like with dance, but I didn't even know that they had like adult classes.
They do, and it's a lot of fun. It's scary in the first couple times. It's really out of my comfort zone, and I am not at all one to go out and do stuff like that. Yes. But it really became kind of a fun hobby for me.
Oh my gosh! Oh, I'm sad you can't do it anymore.
Yeah,
do you think like I was gonna say like with time you'll be able to like just overuse maybe?
I could go down that road.
Yes.
But it's kind of something that I'm hoping will get better and then I can go back to it.
For sure.
But right now we're still working through that.
Okay. Well, that is a very cool hobby. I don't feel like I read a lot. That's bad. I'm like, I don't even have any fun hobbies. I need to put myself out there.
Florida is a fun hobby.
Florida's a fantastic hobby. I know. I literally am like, I could really go for that. Like right now, today. Let's go tomorrow.
Yes. Oh gosh, when it's freezing outside.
I know. Oh,
that's when you miss it.
The sun's a little bit out. I just walked Marin around my backyard just to show her because I feel like I'm always talking to her about plants and yard stuff and all of that. So that was fun to like finally show you because I feel like I'm always like showing you pictures, but you're right. When you see pictures, it's definitely different when it's like in person.
Mm-hmm. You can piece it all together and how it all flows.
Yeah. Because when you see it, you're like, I can't get like a full, literally like full range of everything that's there. So, and yes, she's gonna have to come back, you guys, because there are so many leaves on the ground. I just wish you could see everything when it was like in full bloom. Because that's when you're like, everything was amazing.
And I do want to talk about your process and how you came about creating that space back there.
Yeah.
Because I've heard throughout the years about a little here, a little there, and then just how your mind works in terms of how are we going to organize these spaces and what are we going to plant and what makes you happy and what's going to bring you joy as you walk by your beds every day, So we can get to that later.
Oh, I love that. Okay, very excited to jump in. But first, I'm going to hurry and do my 5 favorite things of the week. So if you listened last week, I did end up doing a solo podcast. I don't know if you saw that. Mm-hmm. So I hurried and recorded one on Sunday because I was like starting to finally feel like I was human again. And that was literally like the worst stomach virus I've ever had in my whole life. It was wild, you guys. And it's like literally like I've heard of so many people that have been sick. So don't worry, I've literally like Cloroxed everything. Like doorknobs, tables, countertops, like everything, like baseboards even. Like I have really tried to like literally wipe every single surface down. But anyway, so I was really trying to even think about things that were like super helpful while I was sick. I did not come up with anything. There was 0 things that were helpful while I was sick.
Lying in bed.
Lying in bed, exactly. Actually, I did read 6 books
Wow.
I know. But if you remember, anyone who's listened, when I did the one with Larissa a couple weeks ago, she's a Listen author, I have a goal to read 150 books this year. Wow. I know. I'm at, let's see, what am I at? Like 120 something? 122 maybe? So I don't have that much time.
You gotta get sick a couple more times.
I'm like, can I just lay in bed for 5 days and read? Yes. I mean, I was literally like, some of those days I was reading I read like one book just throughout the day. Mm-hmm. I think they're like 350 pages. Wow. Like it's not like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I'm a fairly fast reader, but yes. So now I'm like, I need to like listen to one and be reading one so I can be like double going at the same time. But
okay, so listening counts too. You don't have
I think so. I've actually only listened to like 4 books total.
Oh wow.
So, but I think that's where I'm like, the only way I can finish my goal, unless I'm not sick for the rest of the next 2 months, is to do 2 at a time. So yeah, I think that counts.
Yeah. Oh, I like primarily listen.
Oh, so, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just curious
we'll
if that
talk
counts.
about those too. In fact, your mom just texted me a couple weeks ago because I had told her about a book to read, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I loved it! I was dying." Anyway, it was so good.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so she's so fun, you guys. Her mom's really the best too. Okay, so my 5 favorite things. Here we go. Since nothing was helpful while I was sick, my clog Birkenstocks that I'm currently wearing. I'll just take them off and show y'all. I want to say at first, like that when I bought them, I was like, I know I'm gonna love them. I know I'm gonna be obsessed. And I don't think I was really obsessed until like 6 months ago. But I think it took me that long to like really break them in, get my foot in there. Do you have any Birkenstocks? Mm-hmm. Okay. Because they like literally will form to your feet, the leather. So anyway, I've literally been wearing them every single day. I love wearing them with socks now. I'm like, I'm okay with that. At first I was like, oh, heaven help us. What are we doing? But now I'm on board. I'm all in 100%. I love them so much. And also I originally, like when I bought them, I could not find like the lighter color of them. So I ended up just going with the darker brown. It was the right move. Like really the universe was looking out for me. So big fan of the Birkenstock clogs. I've actually talked about some other Birkenstocks, like the rubber ones. Mm-hmm. I swear by those too. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then the Pura air fresheners. Mm-hmm. Have you used those? Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I've talked about the volcano candles is one of my favorite things in the past as well. But Pura has like the cartridge for the specific like from volcano. It's phenomenal, you guys. It's so good. We have one in our bedroom and we have one in our downstairs, and actually is able, like the little, I don't even know what it's called. Like the freshener itself, you can actually put 2 cartridges in, and there's an app where you can choose your different timing. So you can say like, oh, I want the scent to come on like in the morning for 2 hours and then not again until we're like home in the evening. It's actually really awesome. Yeah. And then you're not like, you know, when you plug in like a Bath and Body Works one, it's just going constantly and it goes out so fast. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so that one, so we love the Pure Air Freshener. We've gotten some for Thanksgiving and like Halloween as well as Christmas. But yeah, like all the scents that we've done have been super good. Not just the volcano one. Like there's like a pumpkin chai. Anyway, there's tons of different ones. So I think I actually had done a post or like had put on my stories that I had received it and I was going to like fill everyone in. But I think it's really like the app that changes everything. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I love it. Big fan. Okay. And then Ordinary is a skincare brand. Have you used any of their stuff? You can get them like at Target. Mm. They're so good. I've actually I have a few of their different serums that I've loved, but there is one that is an exfoliating facial and it is bright red. It looks like you have blood on your face.
My daughter would love that.
Yeah, no. I like my kids will walk in and they're like, Mom, like, what are you doing?
Halloween.
Exactly, yes. It is one though that is like a little stronger than normal, than like a typical maybe over the counter. Mm-hmm. So it does burn a little, but you only leave it on for 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And that I feel like is good. Yeah. Anyway, but it is fantastic. I just used it again last night and I don't know. I just feel like the word resurfacing kind of keeps coming to mind, even though it's not like actually resurfacing, but I feel like it really does just make you so glowy after. because it is exfoliating like that good top layer of skin. Like, and even more so than like an exfoliant, like a cleanser, you know? Okay, and then my fourth one is the Laura Mercier Pure Canvas Primer. This one is amazing. I ended up finding it at TJ Maxx, and so I was like, I'm just gonna give it a shot. It's worth it. It is so fantastic because Tarte used to have a one called Glotion that it was like a glowing primer, same like really like you just looked super dewy, not like glittery or anything like that, because I feel like some of them can kind of come across like that. But this one is so good. I feel like it's because it's a primer as well, your makeup stays on so well, and the dewiness kind of comes through it. Like it's a good amount of dew that's not going to like overpower your foundation, but it's also not going to like just stay under it either. So it's phenomenal. Okay, and then my last one is the Anastasia Brow Powder. Love, 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 love. If you've been on my brow journey with me, Tarte also freaking discontinued my favorite brow powder. And I went with my backup, Anastasia. I think I had said like to everyone that like this is the one I'm using again. Anyway, it has just reignited my love for it. It's so good. I do the one that actually has like 2 colors in it and then mix them because like sometimes the dark is too dark and sometimes the light's too light. Anyway, so I like to do that, but that's it. That's my faves of the week. I'm very excited actually to do some videos on some of these to show everyone, especially I did take a picture last night of the exfoliating mask all red because I was like, I look terrifying. Like
That's
this is
great.
like a horror show. So I know. Anyway. Okay, so let's get started then. I am so excited. We have so many questions. I texted Marin a few different things. But first, let's just start out with like, how did you even get into landscape design?
Yeah, so it started, I'd say, like my senior year of high school.
Okay.
I ended up in an AP biology class.
Oh.
Yeah.
I would never expect like that to have like drawn that job.
Well,
okay.
It's a process.
Okay.
So at the beginning, to kind of weed the students out who that they don't think can handle the class.
Sure.
They do a test where you go around and you take a bunch of different leaves from different plants and you have to know the botanical name and the common name for it. And they do like a big test. So you have to memorize, this is what the leaf looks like. This is the name, botanical, common, spell it correctly. And weirdly enough, I loved that. I thought that was so cool. I don't know what it was, but just connecting the plant with the name and just having to know its features. I loved it. So that was like the only little section that I really loved about that class. But it was in the very beginning. I was like, cool, I'm going to like this. Fast forward.
So you passed the test.
I did. Yeah. I stayed in the class. But fast forward to my freshman year of college, I attended BYU in Provo, and I was like looking through all the classes that you could take, and I took some generals. I thought maybe I'd go into psychology or something like that. I'd take an AP
I actually
psychology.
think you'd be so good at that. Okay.
Well, maybe that's my second life.
Yes, see, I know. Second life, perfect.
So I was like looking through some classes, and they had one called Living with Plants. And I was just like, that is so unique and sounds just amazing. And it filled a general that I needed. Yeah. So I took that along with like floral design or just like some super fun intro classes into that wildlife and plant sciences area. So I started going to those classes, really enjoyed them as well, and became familiar with the program that they have. It was called Landscape Management. They've changed the name since.
Yeah,
but that was what I decided to pursue and kind of just went
you
forward
knew
that
like
way.
fairly early on, like literally freshman year, or do you feel like you had like get through all of those classes
I
first,
did.
And then you're like, okay, now I'm ready to like make a decision.
Yeah, I did have, because I do remember my sophomore year thinking, oh, do I really want to stick with this? But I feel like I have to decide. But for those out there that are listening and haven't decided, like, you don't have to decide. Just keep going with whatever. Yeah. And I don't know why I felt that pressure, but I did. So I decided to stay in that program, and They do a bunch of different things. Like I said, it was landscape management. So we learned business actually, which was very
which
interesting.
is awesome. Yeah,
was awesome. I didn't like it at the time.
Yeah.
I was like, why do I have to do this? I didn't never plan on owning my own business.
Yes.
Never. Like, I was like, I'm not doing that. But we learned, maintenance, and then we learned design. And so there was like kind of those different areas that we were educated in. And so that's how I got started. It was kind of silly things like my roommates would make fun of me too. I'd bring home like some interior plants.
Oh yeah.
And I'd give them names and they would just they would make fun of me all the time.
But like indoor plants are huge right now.
Yes.
Like people are talking about, there's always like memes and videos and stuff about like being a plant mom or whatever.
And actually right after, so I worked, did an internship at a garden.
Okay.
Did like some maintenance and education there, and they were specialized in water conservation. So that's kind of how I got my start there.
Yes.
But after that, I worked in the interior plant industry for about 4 or 5 years.
Oh my
gosh. And I did all sorts of things. I did maintenance, but I did design, like interior plant design, and got to work in a greenhouse. And
so when you say interior, I mean that's like indoor essentially, right? Okay. And people like would come to you and say like, hey, I want to like have plants in my house. Like, how would you lay them out?
Yes. So some of that,
I literally I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
a lot of it's on outdoor stuff, but not indoor.
Yeah, a lot of it's commercial as well. So like when you walk into an office building, a lot of the time they'll have just like plants throughout the office space. And even some bigger well-known companies like doTERRA. I don't know if you've ever been to their facility.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite projects to work on.
Cool.
I got to go and do they have like these bowls throughout with like orchids and different flowers, and I got to go and change those out every so often and just kind of refresh. And it was so much fun. I loved just being in that type of environment and space where people valued that beauty and that, fresh, clean feel and look. And so that's where it's been.
Perfect job to me.
It was a lot of fun.
I want to go in and just plant stuff for people. Just tell me what to do. I'll plant it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I know it's not that simple, but that literally like sounds amazing. But I feel like just going back to like when you were like getting into that, I just didn't even know that was like an option. I knew, I don't know, I guess I just in my mind thought like you just, I don't know, plant whatever you want in your yard. I had no idea that it was like something until we owned our first house. And then it was like, oh, but then the front yard was already done for us. And then it was like trying to decide the backyard. Anyway, it just, I didn't even know. So I love that because I do feel like, and granted, some of it has probably come with age, right? Like I didn't really love yard work until we moved here and really had to like design. And I feel like I had the time for it. And I don't know.
That's definitely one of your hobbies. You were like, I don't have hobbies, but that's 100% one of your hobbies.
I love yard work. Yes, it is. You're right. 100%. That is a hobby. I guess I just don't think of it because it's only like 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And that's why. Okay, but then, so let's move into, you do own your own company now. So what is it called? And tell us a little bit about like your partner and like how that all came about.
Yeah, so it's called Threadleaf Landscape Design, and it started about 2 years ago. How it came about is kind of a funny story, and so we'll dive into that right now. We'll go through.
So I'm like, I don't know if I just remember you being like, I'm doing this. I'm really unsure about it, but like, I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah. There was a lot of hesitation on my end. That's just kind of who I am, but that's why. Having a partner was so good for me because she would push me, and I had someone to fall back on if and when things kind of got tricky or hard. So how we met, so my business partner's name's Chelsea.
Okay.
And we met at a previous design build firm. So they did high-end residential landscapes, and they focused on designing it and then implementing it or installing it.
Okay.
And Chelsea was actually the one who hired me on.
Oh, no way.
Yes, but the funny part is she reached out to me just on LinkedIn, and she was like, hey, we're looking to hire. And I, at that point, was 2 weeks postpartum with my first. So with Elowen, I had just given birth, and she reached out.
So you were probably like, not even like, I am like not even thinking about that right now.
Right.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, I told my husband, I was like, oh, like, this seems so like a cool opportunity, but I am not like ready for this. And he was like, you should just go pursue it. Just go.
Yeah.
And I was like,
just give it a
okay.
shot.
So I literally had to find like this skirt that I could barely like put on my 2-week postpartum belly. And I like tried, and I'm like trying to dress myself nice after like getting zero sleep the past 2 weeks. And I was just a total mess, like a total train wreck. But I go in to interview with her. And I mean, things went.
Had you been working somewhere though before that, or had you like been taking some time off since you were having the baby?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So I had worked in like a greenhouse setting until I had my baby, and then I took some time off.
Okay. So then that's when she reached out to you. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you went in there. You're a train wreck.
Go in.
I mean, I highly doubt that because I know you too well. You're always put together.
Well, thank you. But yeah, it was not my best self at the moment. So needless to say that the interview went okay. Yeah. But they didn't hire me. She didn't hire me. So I just kind of went back, and I actually continued to caregive and raise my daughter. Yeah. And then she actually reached out again about a year later and said, hey, like, we'd love to have you back in. Okay. So I came back in and interviewed again, and that's when I got the position working under her.
Interesting.
It was funny because I was like, man, I talked to her after the fact when, after we've been working together, I was like, man, I can't believe you called me back after that first interview. Like, I was just a disaster. And she was like, yeah, she was like, I could tell, but she was like
not to be rude,
but she was like, but the fact that you came in and were like willing to come 2 weeks postpartum, like that struck me, and that was something that I wasn't gonna forget. Yeah, like this stayed with her. Yeah. And so yes, I didn't do great the first time.
I mean, obviously, I have no idea who Chelsea is. Hi, Chelsea, if you happen to listen, but and obviously you're amazing because you realized how amazing Marin is too. But when you I'm sure in her mind too, she was looking at it as like, you are not in a place maybe mentally to even be able to accept a position at that point, right? Where it's like, she probably was like, I actually would love to hire you. You probably weren't that much of a train wreck, but it was like, you just had a baby 2 weeks ago. Like you need some time to even like regroup.
Yeah. And there was someone else in the interview most of the time. Okay. And when I had left, the other lady was like, you're not hiring her. And she was like, what? Why? Chelsea was like, why? And she was like, you have no idea what she is going through right now. Like it is, things are just, she's figuring it out. Yeah. Yep. And I totally was. And so that's totally valid.
Well, especially on your first one.
Yeah.
It's first baby. You're like, yeah. My husband always likes to tell this funny thing that when we came home from the hospital, we like set my son down on the counter, and I was like, well, like, what do we do now? Like, it was like, you're just like anticipating this thing for so long, and then you're like, well, I don't know. I mean, what do we do? Like, just watch him? Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, okay, so she called you back a year later, hired you, and then the rest is history. But you were still working at that residential place. So what made you guys want to leave? Was it just like you just wanted to do your own thing?
So Chelsea ended up leaving the company, and I was still there. But I was like, wait, like I'm not done working with you. Like I loved working with her. Okay. She is really great at seeing the potential in other people, obviously.
Cool.
No, I'm just kidding. And so
you see that.
I saw the way that she was able to grow and lead teams, and just I saw a lot of potential in her, and I wanted to continue to work with her. And then on the other end of things, in our industry, it is male saturated, so there's a lot of male workers and not quite as many female workers, and so it can be really difficult to maintain a work-life relationship, good relationship, and balance, I guess we could say, and that was really hard for both of us. Yeah. I obviously had young kids, and she had just had her first son, and so it was just getting really tricky. Like we couldn't do not even just the 9 to 5, they like people required in the industry during the season, like you were there 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And it was just
that's just like not realistic.
Much. It was hard. And we saw not just for ourselves, but also for others. Like we noticed we were losing all this talent because those mostly women that we experienced, but
Mhm.
this could go for men as well. They would come in and then just realize, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, I can't maintain what my values in my family life and also work and advance my career. So we were losing this young, awesome talent, and then for us, it just wasn't sustainable as well. So it took some convincing, but I convinced Chelsea after she left that we should start our own.
Okay.
And that our values.
I didn't realize it was you that was like the kind of one pushing it.
You know, Chelsea had a lot of options and a lot of ideas.
Okay.
And I just tried to like rein all that in and say, yes, we can do
Let
this.
Let me just tell you how amazing this is going to be.
Yes. And I had the whole whiteboard mapped out. Said, this is what we're going to do and how we're going to include things. And I'm really glad that she got on board. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think we're a really great team. But I will say, like, what we're founded on is really that lifestyle between work and family, and just trying to bond the two the best we can in an industry where that's not usually even thought of, because unfortunately it's just some traditional roles that are being taken, and it's really hard for people to fit inside of those. So especially like the newer rising younger generation of workers and designers, like, they're just not up for that. They want something that's more flexible and dynamic.
Which I kind of love that this new generation is doing that, because I feel like it was for so long, it was just like you just work. I mean, that's where the term workaholic came up, right? Mm-hmm. And I know my husband's like that. If you're listening, honey, you know I feel this way about you, but he knows it too. But it is working. It is figuring out that like work-life balance where it's like, you know, it's just, he's like, yeah, but my stuff's not done. I'm like, that doesn't matter. Just start work tomorrow. Yeah. Well, anyway, which I know that's not realistic either sometimes, but
I do want to hear more about your journey as well, because you've been a working mom and continue to be so. So I do want to hear like what that was like as you transitioned to do work outside the home, and what that looked like for you.
Well, honestly, mine was I've like never not worked. So even when, I worked for a technology company for residential home builders for 11 years. That's where I met my husband. I started working from home part-time for that same company. I was an account manager when I had Dylan, who's the one that's 16. So I did that, and then I was still doing hair at night, or during nap time or whatever, and then continued doing both of those jobs even through when I had the twins. Like, I was doing part-time hair and part-time technology company for 11 years. It was wild.
That is so much time.
And then I finally got to the point when the twins were like, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years, where I needed to, because I had worked from home doing everything. I did hair from home. I did the technology company from home. I was a mom, or I was like, I'm going to kill someone. Like, I've got to get out of this house. Mm-hmm. And so from there, that's when I went into a salon, and I was like, okay, let's just do everything in one day. And that made it easier to compile, where I wasn't doing like hair every single night or every single nap time. Mm-hmm. So that just made it easier there. And then I stopped working at that technology company probably, oh my gosh, what year was that? Like, I don't know, 2016-ish. And so, really since then, I've just been doing hair pretty much more like full-time, which I'm obviously not like super full-time. I'm like 25 hours a week. Mm-hmm. But even now I've backed off. I only do 2 days a week now, except for this week I'm working every day, except for today.
Oh my goodness.
But it's because it's Thanksgiving.
Yes,
that's
everyone
why.
Wants it in before the
everyone
holidays.
Wants to get in, and like before Christmas, and I take off between Christmas and New Year's. But it is very hard, very, very hard to be a working mom. Like, where I'm like, I still have to come home and make dinner, and I still have to do the laundry, and it's just, we have to do our entire full-time mom job, which is way more. It's 24/7, and then we still have to fit a regular job inside of that. So it is, I don't even know if I could ever say I've had like a good work-life balance because it depends on the week. And this week I feel real freaking crazy because it just like a lot going on. But then there's other weeks that are like obviously like slower than others. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just, I don't know if you feel like this. I feel like sometimes it's just like, I don't know, I just do it. Like you just do it?
Mm-hmm. I think the big mindset shift for me was when I realized that to be a good mom, I didn't have to do the laundry or cook the meals or clean the house. It was like, no, what mattered most was my relationship with my kids.
Yeah.
And so sometimes those things went undone, or sometimes I hire those things out, right? I have someone come and clean the house for me because, that's just not something that, like, doing those things didn't help my relationship with the kids.
Priority. So it's interesting because I hadn't even like really thought about it how you just worded it, but I saw a quote at one point when my kids were little that said something to the effect of like I'm never going to look back and regret that I didn't do the dishes or didn't clean the house. I'm going to regret the time I didn't spend with my kids. And so I had always said that. And like once I read that, I was like, okay, that's kind of my motto, right? Like the dishes can wait. Like I'm okay to go to sleep with dishes in the sink. I'm like, I'll do them tomorrow because I've been with the kids all day or this or that or the other. And I also think the way you word that as well is interesting because so many women are like, I'm supposed to do this. I'm like, who said that? Like, where are the rules? Where's the rule book that has said you have to have dinner on the table every night? You have to have the laundry done and the dishes by the end of the night. Obviously, there's things that we do that make our lives easier by the next day. Like if you do a quick 10-minute, like pick everything up. But there's also different seasons of life. Like I have older kids now, but guess what? There's still clothes and shoes and freaking candy wrappers and all that, where before it was like toys. So I don't know. So I think but you're right. I mean, it's the relationship and the time you can't get back, right? Like you can always do the dishes, but you can never get that time back with your kids.
Yeah, and for me, so I did go through a period where I was at home raising my daughter and doing a lot of those traditional things of like house care and management. But I was very unhappy.
Yeah.
And because of that, I wasn't a great or as good of a mother to my daughter.
Totally.
And it actually took my husband telling me like, hey, I think you need to take some of these opportunities that are coming your way.
Totally.
And that's why he kind of pushed me to do that interview, but also just keep an eye out and look and say, okay, I think you need this in order to feel like you can give your best self to your daughter as you mother her and create that relationship. And so that's for me, that's kind of reframing things that way helped.
Sure.
It definitely was really hard in the beginning because I did feel like, okay, now I have this like at first it was just part-time when I got hired. Now I have this part-time job and I've got to make sure that the house is clean and dinner's on and all the things. And it just came to a point where I was like, that's not helping this relationship as we're moving forward. So I've got to kind of let those things go. Yeah. Like you said, like the dishes can wait and, dinner can be a freezer meal that I throw in the whatever, or my husband throws in.
Yeah.
And so
totally.
It's just kind of that mindset shift that helped me get to that point where I felt not guilty or shame or any of that kind of things that I think come a lot with when you're working and feeling like you are responsible for all these other things and not taking care of those as well.
Yeah. And I think you're right. And that's why I say, like, I've always worked. I've never not worked because I enjoy it. Like, I love being with people. I love being out of the house. I love having my own thing. Because I feel like a lot of times when you are, like, as a young mom, and if you're not doing anything, you can lose yourself very, very quickly of, like, who am I? What do I even enjoy? What are my hobbies? All that kind of stuff. And I don't know. It's obviously like some people like to work and some people are like, no, I would rather just be at home, but I'm the same. I would never be happy just being at home because I would just like, that just wasn't, not that it wasn't enough for me because it has nothing to do with that, but it's just, I just want to be able to do other things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
you're right. I feel like I'm a better mom if I can get out of the house and talk to other people.
Yes. Yeah. And
like other adults and other, and like it fills my cup. Yes. 100%.
Yeah. And then you can then give to your children or your husband or other relationships as well. Yeah, I definitely agree on that. And if you choose to be at home and be a caregiver and for your children, just like even splitting that role up and saying like, no, these things I do at home, that's a caregiving role, and I can feel free to break free of those things and go do hobbies or find my own interests, because you're right, it is like you can definitely just be, your identity can become your children if you're not working on yourself and your what you want to become and what things you want to explore and how you want to be creative.
Well, and I think too, it helps us build up our children, right? Because I feel like my kids have seen like help like life skills, time management, or like, again, like not procrastinating, or like, hey, if we get these things together at night, then this helps our day go smoother the next day.
Yeah.
I mean, we're teaching them a lot of life skills. Again, not that you can't teach them life skills when you're just a stay-at-home mom, not just, because that's a very, very, very hard job. But like when you're doing all the things, I feel like, I don't know, we're teaching them some different things and showing them that it is an option. And also, this is what I was thinking about too, is that I think you're the same though. We do rely on our husbands a lot, and we rely on our husbands to really help us. And I think for a long time, obviously, like, in the 50s, husbands didn't do that. They just worked, right? That was it. And they came home to a home cooked meal, and the children were all clean and nice and bathed and all the things. But now it's like, no, like we share a lot of the responsibilities, because I'm like, something has to give and I can't do it all. And I love that, because I feel like it makes us more of a team.
Yeah.
Like it's not just like, it's not just like, oh, well, those are your jobs and these are your jobs. Like I mow the lawn a lot because my husband's out of town a lot, right? And do the yard work. But he also does all the trimming and the edging, because I stay away from things that fly at my legs. They terrify me, those trimmers. But and he does the heavy lifting, he's building stuff, he does like so many things, and I'm like, I could never do that. I just love that we get to be partners in that, where it is like a shared experience of our life,
Absolutely.
So, but I love that you've created then a company that you like, that's, I mean, not your motto, but like essentially you're creating an environment that allows that.
Yeah, and not just for me and Chelsea, but also for, we have designers that we work with who help us with our design work and our draft work, and it's all remote, and they all get to work at home, so they can do their stuff whenever they need. Like it doesn't, it's during nap time, or it's after the kids go to bed, or it's after they're done with their day job. Like a lot of the time, that's just the lifestyle they want to have, and so we want to be like, we don't care, you don't have to be in an office 9 to 5, like you just get your stuff done, and you can still make sure that you're living your values outside of that, and being able to be with your family when you want. And so trying to provide an environment, and people have just flocked to it.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. I'm like, tell me what I need to do to become like, I want to work for you.
I'd hire you in a heartbeat.
Like, of course. That would be amazing. But that's kind of what we're all seeking, right? Is like a lot of it, like, you don't need to be micromanaged. We don't need butts and seats. Because I feel like, again, for so many generations, that's how it's been. And like nowadays, I think that that's changed, where it's like, if you know your own time management and you can just like, hey, you have a deadline, do it whenever you want. I don't care if you do it at 3:00 in the morning. I just need it done by Friday at 5.
Yep.
And I feel like I work well under that, like kind of a pressure, if you will. Like I try to like, just when I, think like church stuff, right? Like in committees, I'm like, hey, you do this, you do this, you do this. I don't care how you do it or whatever. I just trust you that it'll be there again Friday at 5 or whatever it is, you know?
Absolutely.
And people thrive when they can be in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they flock to you, because they're probably like, I want that job. So how many designers do you have working for you right now?
So we have about 10 freelance designers.
Whoa!
Yeah. But keep in mind that they are working on a project by project basis. So it's not like we are supplying all those designers with full-time work.
Okay.
It's a lot of part-time work.
Like contract work, almost like where they're like, hey, do you want to take on this project? And they can say yes or no.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep. And so like if they have stuff going on and they say no, they're like, great, we'll just move to the next designer. And we do, like if they say, oh, I'm available now, I'd like to work on a design, we try really hard to get them something.
Sure.
But it's kind of like we just kind of move through the list of people we think would be good for that project, and we kind of try and fit things that way, and then look at their availability. But we have 10 that we've worked with, and we just had about 3 or 4 new ones reach out and want to work with us. So at this point, Chelsea and I are like, okay,
yeah, you're like, wait a second, yeah.
We like now Chelsea and I are the bottlenecks because we need to get all the clients in to be able to supply enough designs for all these amazing designers. And so that's kind of where we're at, like our pain point right now. We're like, what do we do? Like, how do we?
Because like you don't have enough time to like go through everything,
right? Like, or even to just meet with that amount of clients to be able to get those proposals signed. So we're playing with maybe we have to hire someone now instead of just doing that. And so the thing is like, how do we hire someone and still give them that environment?
Yeah.
Because it's a little different, once they're on your W-2 or whatever. But
yeah, because I mean, really, whoever you would hire, I mean, and maybe that person doesn't necessarily have to be someone who needs that kind of schedule, because they would have to go and meet with clients and stuff. And
it would be a little
more
structured.
To you? Like, do you have an office?
For the clients?
Yeah, like when do they come to you? Go to them.
We go to them.
Because you probably have to like look at their space. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now we just work from home, and then we go visit on their site, and then we review things virtually with them, and then sometimes it's required that we do a couple site visits, but most of the time we can meet with them that initial time, and then review virtually their plans and show them all the beautiful mood board pictures and get them all excited.
I'm dying. I'm like, what? Like, I need a second life already. I'm ready to go back to college.
You know what though? It's so funny is a lot of designers that I meet, they really did do something, and then they kind of just stumbled upon landscape design, and then they kind of transitioned to doing that. And so it totally is something that you can definitely, like, if you're interested, transition into. But you have amazing skills. But
do I have to have a degree, like a bachelor's, to do it?
You don't.
Really?
Not in the state of Utah. I believe it's different in some. Like there are different requirements.
Certain states, yes, you can design.
But you have amazing skills in other areas that I don't want to lose.
I know. That. Well, no, like it's just like starting the podcast, right? It was like, I'm 40. I've been doing hair for 20 years. I'm ready to just like try something new. So I wouldn't like quit doing hair.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Even where I'm at right now, I've told you that. I've told it like everyone. I've mentioned it on here. I don't take new clients. The people that are with me, you guys have been with me for years. Like how many years have I been doing you? I think I've for sure been doing your mom for like 6 years.
Well, my daughter is 5, and then I think I was pregnant with. So yeah, it's been like 6 years at least for me too.
Oh, you were pregnant with her when?
I think
oh my gosh, you're right. I was thinking that you had already had LON, but I don't know. I can't remember.
Now I can't either.
I know. I'm like, wait a second. I mean, obviously, for sure, you had your second one, but either way, like I have this is my book of business I want, right? The people I have are the people who have been with me for years, and they're the people I want to keep. And so it's like, again, it's just working but it would be so fun to work like a couple of days a week, or, like a project every now and again, doing something like that. But again, that's like a whole other beast to tackle, but that just sounds exciting. And I just think it's so cool that you are creating that environment, because I don't know, it is something that is new and it needs to happen.
Well, especially just in my industry, it's a little bit dinosaur. Like, it's just taken time, with tech and stuff, like
things are constantly changing.
Yeah. And people, like my husband works in tech, and like, the work from home thing, awesome. Yeah. Like the flexible schedule, awesome. Like all these things that tech is kind of on the front end of the tech industry. And then my industry's like, maybe we can have a virtual meeting. Like, it's just so, anyway, it's just something that needed to be disrupted. And that's why we decided to take that leap and start something ourselves, is because we couldn't find it anywhere else. So we decided to, hey, let's try this and see how it works. And so far
it's working.
It's been great. Yeah, it really has been great.
I love it.
I mean,
so
given
much.
that like there have been struggles, and last year was really hard on my mental health.
Yes.
It was so hard.
Yes.
Just all the stress, all the pressure, and then on top of that, like the things we talked about of like just trying to manage a household. And that's where it came into like, okay, I need to sit down with my husband and we're going to talk about being a better partnership, because it was negatively affecting my ability to function.
Yeah. Which is, again, it's huge. Like, you need help. And that's where I think too, it's like, why wasn't ever okay to ask for help before? Like, I guess that I just, in our relationship, and I don't know why, I don't know if it was just like my mindset or what. And my dad did a lot of help with cooking and stuff. Maybe not as much when we were younger, but for sure, I think my mom probably was like, I need help. But I think it was like, I just always expected my husband to do.
So you never had to like sit down and make a plan. It was just like, no, that's the expectation that we both do.
I mean, there was definitely an expectation. I do think at different points of our lives, I have had to say, I need more help with X, Y, and Z. But I'm not afraid to ask for help. And so maybe that's why in my mind, it's not like we had sat down and had to like come to Jesus, right? Yeah. It was just like, I just always expected like, yeah, you changed dirty diapers too. And I don't know, like when the babies were like babies, sometimes he would get up with them. I wouldn't say it was like all the time. Twins was different because I really did need help. So he definitely got up more in the night with the twins to help me. But I also got it pretty figured out with the twins where I could do 2 bottles and then I could just like hold them. Like, cause they would like lay in a boppy pillow or whatever. And so then a lot of times I was like, I don't really need to. And at that point he had to get up in the morning and go to work. Yeah. So then it was like, I mean, I can work on my own timetable, right? And when they're napping. And so I can actually sleep in a little bit in the morning if they're asleep. Like, so that's where too, I feel like in my mind, I could be like, okay, this is something like I need his help with. And there's like, there's no other way around it. Or like, okay, actually, I think I could figure this out on my own because he has to work early or whatever it is. But it's interesting too, because this just like came to mind when we were first, well, I mean, I guess within like the first few years, once I had Dylan, because, we had Gabe when we got married because his son, which is my stepson, I love him very, very, very much. He's my baby too, but he had just turned 5 when we got married. And so we already had a kid, but it wasn't a lot of like, I need your help with this because he was already older. Like, I didn't have to do any of that baby toddler stuff. Anyway, and so when we had Dylan, I remember one time being like, hey, can you watch him like while I go do this? Or can you babysit? The way I worded it, he was like, I'm his dad. Like, I am not going to babysit him. Like basically, I can't even remember the word he used, but it was basically like, no, I will take care of my son while you go do whatever you're going to do. Like, it should never be something where you have to like ask, like, hey, can you watch the kids? Because it's like, no, I'm leaving, you're home. I don't know, the way he worded it, I was like, oh, I mean, like, yeah, you're right. Like, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean anything like by it. It was just like, hey, are you around tonight if I leave to like watch the kids or whatever? Anyway, and so I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely a give and take in a relationship in different seasons of life. But I definitely, like, if I could do it where it was something that would take away from him being able to do his job, then I would just take care of it. But yeah, we've definitely had conversations where I'm like, okay, so I need more help with this. Or that's why I was like, okay, we need a house cleaner because like I cannot do the kids, especially with him traveling so much, plus work. And, in the last couple of years, I was working 4 and 5 days a week. And even though I was working only half days, that was like, again, I still have to come home and like grocery shop and figure out dinner and take them to the orthodontist, like do all the things. And it was like, I don't know when I'm supposed to do that. Now that I'm doing only 2 days a week and there are just those half days, the house cleaner's only coming once a month because it's like, you don't need I can be more on top of it. Even though I feel like I'm not. I need somebody tell me after they listen to this podcast, I need you to be like, on Mondays, you do this. On Tuesdays, you do this. Like, I want like a concise, like, if you do X, Y, and Z on these days, it will like keep you up on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's totally how my brain works too. I always want like
I'm like,
clear
help me
plan,
come up.
schedule.
Yes. Where it's like if you do like all the because I feel like even doing all the bathrooms on Monday, I'm like that feels overwhelming to me.
Oh yeah.
That's where I'm like, maybe it's just like on Mondays you do the master bathroom. On Tuesdays you do that half bath. On Wednesdays you do you know what I'm saying? But then I'm like, then it's only bathrooms.
It's like
There's still all the vacuuming and all the dusting.
Bathrooms my whole week. Yeah.
Yes, I know. So I'm like, I need somebody really to be like, listen, if you take 1 hour a day and do this on Mondays and this on Tuesdays, then you would get your entire house cleaned in a week.
I bet there's something out there like that.
I have Pinterested and Pinterested. And I feel like there's been some, but there hasn't quite been what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it has to be a little more customized.
Yes.
Everyone has a different house.
But this is the problem. I can't take a week off work and do these jobs like to be like, oh, this really works, you know?
Yes,
it's like I can't personally come up with it, but if somebody else could, I'd appreciate it.
Call out to all the people.
Yes, I'm like, if somebody can send me a list of what I need to do. Actually, my sister-in-law Heather is really good at that, and she's the one who kind of broke it down for me originally to be like, oh, well, I do this on Mondays and I do this on Tuesdays. But like, okay, here's one. I do at least a load of laundry every day.
Mm-hmm.
Like even in the mornings, I just hurry and throw it in. And then like when I get home from work, I switch it over and then it's done by at night. Mm-hmm. That has been life-changing. So I don't know, at least for that. But yes, if there's anyone else who has a system, please tell me. Sorry, what were you going to say now? You probably just lost your
Well, also there's like different levels of cleanliness for different people.
Yes.
So it's like cleaning the bathroom for you might look way different than cleaning the bathroom for me.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, so coming up with that system again, customizable to your, like what you feel is clean, because I definitely notice in our household, some things are kept clean to my standards, some things are kept clean to my husband's standards. And I've realized like, it's okay if things aren't always the clean that I need.
Yes.
Or I think needs to be. Anyway.
So. I know, I think this is my husband. He gets very frustrated with me when I say things like this, because sometimes I say to him, I'm like, you have unrealistic expectations. Because he's the one that's like, I want like this, you know, da 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 da. And to me, I'm like, I grew up with lots of little kids. He's the youngest of 5. So like, I feel like there wasn't toys on the floor when he was growing up or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
And again, when we're married, right, we take, this is how I grew up and this is how you grew up, and we're just trying to like compromise together. But you're right, where like my kids, I mean, again, I have older kids. I have 2 almost 13-year-olds and a 16-year-old in the house. And each Saturday they do the bathrooms and their bedrooms, and they vacuum and they dust and all that every single Saturday. So in theory, during the week, like those things shouldn't need to be done.
Yeah.
It should just be like, you know, the vacuuming and like wiping down kitchen cabinets and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like sometimes I'm like, all of a sudden I look at my dresser and I'm like, oh my gosh, this hasn't been dusted in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And I, you know, you swipe your finger across it and you can write your name in it. Because I'm like, how have I not noticed this for 2 weeks? Mm-hmm. So it's more like that kind of stuff where it's like, if you just like dust all the surfaces on Monday. Yes. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, something of that nature. But okay, so tell me then, now that we've kind of gotten through all of that, what is a process? If somebody comes to you and is like, listen, I want you to design my landscape, they just come to you and say, like, what's the process? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so I guess one thing that you mentioned, and I think it'd be helpful to also mention in the beginning, is what we specialize in.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yes.
So we specialize in high-end residential landscapes. Okay. We take all kinds of projects, but that's kind of like our niche. Yeah. That's like I mentioned, the design build that we worked for before was high-end residential. Chelsea worked in other areas in high-end residential. So we have some experience. Yeah. So someone comes to us, you know, wherever that comes from, and says, hey, I'd like to get a landscape designer out. And we usually jump on a phone call with them and say, okay, like, look, what are you looking for? Just get like an idea of their vision and their budget and, you know, kind of all those basic information type questions. And then we also explain our process and say, hey, this is where we start. And that's with the consultation. Okay. and we come out, and that's when we visit and walk the property with them and really talk through their ideas and how they want to use the space and what that looks like. And after the fact, we're able to send them over a proposal that details out how many hours that we think it'll take us to design their project.
And is that, because that, like, that's before you go into like how much plants are going to cost, how much this is just like a design quote essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So this is just to design their landscape out. It does include the design includes at the end of the day like a detailed planting plan, hardscape plan, layout, and materials.
And is there typically a cost for the consultation?
Yes.
Okay, so there is like an upfront fee, like, hey, I'll pay you this amount, you come, give me this, and then the proposal is like an additional.
Yeah, so usually as we're doing the consultation and walking through things, we're also giving our ideas and suggestions. So you're kind of paying for our knowledge and ideas as well. And then I like to jot down notes and kind of draw things roughly out and send that as like a deliverable after the consultation. But then that fee for the consultation gets wrapped into the proposal. Okay. So if they decide to move forward with the full design, then that just gets kind of wrapped into there.
Yeah, which that makes total sense.
Yeah, it's just kind of a nice like gateway entry to like, okay, let's make sure we're a good fit for you and you feel like we're gonna be the best designer moving forward.
And so then if they do choose you and you choose them, what happens from there? Like, is that when you actually put out like the whole spec of everything? Do you have somebody else that does that? Is that you?
So that looks like once that proposal has been signed, they kind of send us over all the information that they have, whether that's like a site survey or a Pinterest board or, just kind of stuff that they can send to us. And then we begin our process. And that's me compiling all this information, putting it into like a Google Drive folder and a couple other places that we manage things. And then I kind of come up with like a checklist, I guess, for our designers who help me draft that work. So I come up with this checklist and say, okay, we're going to start this design. And usually with the first meeting where we meet with the client, it's a concept design review, meaning that like we're just reviewing the layout of things.
Sure.
So we're not diving into a lot of those details until the end because we want to make sure you like the flow and how things look that way.
Kind of the vibe of like what they're going for.
Exactly. Yeah, and we review a mood board of pictures as well so that they can kind of visualize some of the ideas that we have because it's hard. Our plans are 2D and it's like that bird's eye looking down.
Okay.
And so like as an average person who doesn't view those every single day, it's sometimes hard to tell what's going on, and I don't blame
Well, I guess
anyone
that was what I wanted to ask too, is like what kind of softwares are you using?
So that depends on our designers. They
each do something different.
Yeah, there's a standard. It's AutoCAD, which we just use a lot in our industry. But there are other designers who use like just their iPad and they draw it out that way and they make it absolutely gorgeous. So it kind of depends on the designer and the project, like what we feel like we need.
Sure.
If we need like technical specs on stuff, we probably have to do a computer program. If we're just wanting like a beautiful design that just illustrates the ideas, then we'll do something with an iPad. But so we use a variety of stuff. So
which is actually amazing though, the technology that we have these days to be able to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is. And I use my iPad, like I mentioned, like I'll draw stuff at the client meeting. So I use that a lot, and just like it blows my mind how like people did this without that, because I grew up.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Well, not grew up. I learned hand drafting. So you would literally like pen and paper draw the entire design out, and it's beautiful, and people still do it that way. But it is so much time. Just like then you got to photocopy it, then you got to take it to the client, and then you got to mark that up, and then you got to redraw it because they want changes, and it's just like, oh my goodness, how do people do this and survive?
Maybe that's why it's still a little bit dinosaurish. That's why they're still trying to like wrap their heads around like, wait, we've been doing like this forever.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
That is fascinating. So, that's so interesting.
It comes down to just the project and the client, and a lot of the time, they've again never seen a design before, so most of the time our clients are like just blown away with what we pump out. I hope is most of the time, but
well, and then from there, so do then you guys manage the project? Tell me, because I guess that's where I like, in my brain, I'm like, gosh, there's so many things to organize into, like, oh, we got to get these plants ordered and we have to get concrete ordered and like all that kind of stuff.
So on most of our projects, we don't manage. What we end up
Okay.
doing is once the design is complete and the client feels great about that vision, then we pass it to a trusted contractor.
Okay.
At the end of the day, the client can choose whoever they want to install.
Sure.
But we have a couple contractors on our list that we know they do good work. So we pass it to them, and the contractor kind of takes over from there.
Okay.
And we can be involved if the client wants us to.
Sure.
But because we have this system where we've got our designers that we're trying to like keep busy, it's hard because that takes away time from getting them projects.
But that's good to know, because I didn't know what your start to finish was. So really, you're just the design. You're just the proposal of like, hey, this is what would look beautiful in your yard. And then you hand it off to the next person.
Yeah, and of course, if there's questions.
Honestly, I feel like that's best case scenario. Like, let me draw it up, think of the amazing design, you get the creativeness of it, but then you don't actually have to order the concrete.
Yeah, it's a whole nother ball game doing install. And we understand how things are installed.
Sure.
Which is really helpful, because then you're not just designing these things that are a pretty picture and really you can't install it.
It's like not realistic.
Or the budgets. Like, we do understand those types of things, which is something that kind of sets us apart and we pride ourselves on, is that, there's a lot of designers out there who they just don't understand that aspect. They've only done design and they haven't done that install, so they don't know, like, okay, we can't do this thing because it'll be a freaking pain to install or to maintain even. So
well, and I think too, a lot of times I've even done this with my own yard, and we can get into like even how I designed mine, but sometimes when you read those cards of like, hey, this bush should get this by this, sometimes it takes off, or sometimes it doesn't. And you're like, oh, I was really hoping that would cover that meter, and it's not.
Yeah.
Or to me, in fact, your mom actually said this to me, and that the more I've thought about it, I'm like, maybe she did tell me that. Because when I was talking to her, because again, her mom is also like a wealth of knowledge. We talk yard stuff all the time. But about the Russian sage, and she's like, I told you that they were going to be terrible. And I was like, you did? I'm like, I don't remember that.
That's so funny.
But like, since she said that to me, I have thought about it 5,000 times. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder if she really did say that to me. But we planted this Russian sage, which is beautiful, and I love it. And I used to cut it and put it in vases, and it was awesome. It smelled so good, and I love the bees, like everything. But it is, oh my gosh, it grows bananas. Like, it was just like, I mean, the roots were like all the way down the street and up and underneath our fence, and like, it was a disaster. And so we've taken it all out. But when I was telling her about that, she was like, I told you that. I'm like, dang it that I've known you so long that you could have told me that. I'm like, funny. I don't remember, but she probably did.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh,
so tell me, what was the process? I mean, I've heard as it's gone along, little bits and pieces, but what did that look like when you guys first moved in?
I mean, obviously so we didn't design our house. We came when it was framed. And so to us, it was like, okay, there was a few things that we could actually choose for our house. And I knew kind of the style that I wanted. I do very much love a country look. My house is all white. It's all like the hardy board. Like, I don't have any rock. I don't have any brick, nothing like that. It's very simple. And so with my landscaping, I actually have kind of gone through a lot of different ideas, because at first I was like, I just want everything green. Like, really, I was like, I just want boxwoods everywhere. I'm like, I love boxwoods. I just want boxwoods up, and I want boxwoods out, and I want boxwoods around. Like, I just everywhere.
Oh man, then, I would have just shaken my head if you were my client.
I know. You'd have been like, you are freaking nuts. But that's the thing, is like, the more research I did, and like the more I like started doing things on my own, which that's where I do think, if you don't know, like, sometimes it's good to play in the dirt. Like, I just loved being able to do that. So I started just kind of planting things. I literally just started with one little corner. Like, Kate, you know how It's actually the worst. I like never wanted it. And then I was like, okay, we have to have it. But where you're next to your neighbor and your yards meet up, but you don't have a fence in between. So your grasses meet, but there's like, I don't know, boxes, some green boxes, whatever those are.
Utility
like,
boxes?
Yeah, utility, electrical, whatever, in the front corner. And so I was like, we have to do something there. You can't just do grass because that's awkward and weird. So I finally resorted to like, okay, we'll do like kind of this little like half circle situation. And honestly, like my very first experience, I went to I can't even remember what it was called, but there was a nursery in Highland that was closing. And they were like clearancing out all of their plants. And I remember like coming home, they were seriously like so dirt cheap. And my husband's like, what are you going to do with those? Like, we don't even know what we're going to do. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to plant them. And he was actually like super bugged at me. Because I think at that point, like I'd never done yard work. I'd never planted really anything ever. And he was just like, you can't just like plant stuff. I'm like, why? Like that to me was like, nothing was stopping me.
Right.
So the things that actually like grew there, I had a bunch of irises and I don't even remember. Anyway, the irises are the only things that actually lived and they've been fantastic and amazing and they're so beautiful. But that's really what it was. So I kind of just did those first few things. Like we didn't even have grass yet. And we had just done like the curbing and everything. But from there, so like when I think front yard, it ended up being like, okay, so then we did end up going together and it was like, oh, well, I love this plant in my neighbor's yard. I did a lot of driving around.
Yeah. Snapping photos.
Yes, snapping photos. Yes. Like I'm like, wait, what is that? And talking to people and like getting ideas. And my neighbor across the street that's been on, Shelly, who's the nurse practitioner, she is wicked good at that kind of stuff too. And she actually really taught me a lot about, besides annuals and perennials, like that things bloom at different times. So then it was like, you want to have something that blooms here and then here. And then I started like really like just walking nurseries and getting ideas of like what plants there were, reading like the tags like religiously of like, okay, what is this? And kind of understanding what all of those things mean. But then, so I like loved lamb's ear. I'm obsessed with lamb's ear. So I started planting lamb's ear and that kind of like started like going up my front walk. And we did our boxwoods. We only did 2. So it's just been a work in progress. And every year, like in the front, it's been I'll add a few things. And then by the next year, I'm like, oh, okay, now I can add more here and add more here. Or sometimes I like plan something and it comes back the next year and I'm like, I hate that. And I rip it out and I do something different. And so that has been my method of madness. I know it's not like the best idea because it wasn't like, okay, I knew exactly what I wanted. The only thing I would say that I like 100% knew was that when I looked at my house, I knew exactly where I wanted the curbing to go. And that helped me to like kind of rein things in that way. Okay. And then when it came to the backyard though, same, like my husband, we had just the like 10 by 10 concrete pad that just comes with your home. And we were like, we for sure want to do a bigger pad out here. And he was like, well, maybe we just do, I can't even remember like what the measurements were, but like from here to here. And I was like, whoa, no, like let's do like the entire width of the back of our house. And he was like, you're crazy. That is going to look so weird. And I'm like, no, I promise. Like, I don't know. In my mind, I just already saw it.
Yeah.
Like it just was already there for me. And so we literally went like, I don't know, you just walked out there, probably like what, 20 feet out, maybe 25 feet out from our house. And we literally did the entire width of our house. And we love it. We're obsessed with it. It usually looks better. Right now it's a little wild, but we have the fire pit with all that around it. I have lounge chairs. We have a hot tub. We have like a dining table with chairs. Like we're able to have so much and host. That's the thing. It's like we host family dinners all the time in the summer and it's the best. Yeah. But yeah, I just knew that when I looked out at it, I just could kind of see it in my mind of like, I want a raised garden over here. We want to have a shed over here because we had to pour the concrete right then. So we kind of had to decide early on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was literally the summer after we moved in. And it wasn't like I mean, we knew we had to do our yard within a year,
Mhm.
but it wasn't like, oh, we're doing everything right this second.
Mhm.
So we decided, okay, shed over there, that's going to be the best place for it. And we had intended on doing the chickens. In fact, your mom was a huge proponent in our chicken
Shenanigans.
Yes. Where I wanted them for a long time. I had been working on my husband forever. And then once we decided, I mean, I asked your mom so many questions, but then it was like, oh, well, where do we put a chicken coop? And then, so everything has just been very organic, very, I feel like that's the same with like a house. Everything's always just a work in progress,
Yeah.
And so I feel like with the back too, it's very much started out where, I mean, we had like raspberry bushes all along the inside of our fence. And we were like, this is going to be amazing. And we can't wait to get raspberries. It was a disaster. They fried every year. It was so hot against the white fence. So then like we ripped all those out and now we put rose bushes there and they're amazing. And, our garden boxes, we've done multiple things and we've done vegetables and then we've done flowers now and we've done pumpkins. And so I feel like, I don't know if I've really had like a certain thing. It's just been more like, okay, I know that this is a shade area. I know that this is a sun area. What kind of plants would work best here? But I do love a wild look. Like I'm okay not having
the boxwood.
Yes,
that
which
you
is so
originally
funny that I
wanted.
wanted it, and I'm like, I'm so glad that we weren't at a place right then because we moved in February, so it's cold. It's not like we could even start anything anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I had multiple months to really rethink that because then it was like, oh yeah, I would have hated that. Hated it. I would have been planting stuff all around the boxes,
defeating the purpose.
Yes. Because now it is like pretty wild. I just sometimes go to the nursery. I'm like, oh, I love that. I'm gonna, I don't know, find somewhere to plant it. But to me, that is what's beautiful, and I love it.
And that's the thing is that's what brings you joy, and that's what you enjoy in your landscape. And I think just like in our lives, like a garden is ever evolving, a landscape is ever evolving, and we change and we adapt and we shift just depending on what the circumstances are. So I love that you're able to just like take in what you want at that moment and see how it flourishes, and then when it's time to move on, you can cut those raspberries out.
I have no problem getting rid of things. In fact, my husband was always like, so if you got 10 new plants and there's literally nowhere in our yard to plant them anymore, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know, I'll just get rid of some. I'm very much like, I'm just going to dig that one up and start fresh.
Yeah, and that's how you learn too. That's how you learn your style and what does well. And
that's what I was just going to say, because I feel like, so I actually tried hydrangeas twice before the third time finally took, because hydrangeas always say to do it in full sun. That is a bold-faced lie.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, well, why do they keep putting that on those dang little ticker things?
One thing you should know about, because you mentioned that you read the tags like religiously, those tags and plants usually come from other parts of the United States.
Yes, and I try to read the zones.
Yes, but so the height and width are sometimes what they'll get in the Pacific Northwest, which is a much different climate.
Sure.
And sometimes it'll say full sun, but that's in the Pacific Northwest where they have 90% cloudy days, and it's just like that's not our environment. So you do have to take that with a grain of salt and think, okay, this says full sun, but is it really in Utah where we have this heat, this intense desert heat? Yeah, it's a little bit different.
And that's where it has been a lot of trial and error, because there's definitely things that have been like, oh, that says full sun. So back to the hydrangeas, because then I also want to tell you about one other thing. But I talked to a friend who I was like, how did you get yours to grow in your yard? She was in my neighborhood. And she was like, oh no, they need like so much water, and they need a ton of shade. She's like, there is even sometimes I'll go put an umbrella. I was like, that's overboard, but I love you so much. And anyway, so I put them on the north side of my house, and they have flourished. They're amazing. They're not as big as I want yet, which I just talked to her about this, because I was not cutting them back at the wrong time, I think. So I'm hoping that next year, like, I'll get a lot of good growth. But and like the water, I was having to water them every single day on my own with a hose. And I feel like that made all the difference. But before they, burned to death. So, but then anyway, so a lot of trial and error. Like I have this rose bush that I planted in my front, and I actually feel like it doesn't get enough sun. Like it's green leaves all the time, but I don't get very many blooms.
Yeah.
So it's things like that where I'm like, next year, I'm like, I don't know, maybe I might dig that up and try something else.
I love that it doesn't deter you though. Some people are like, well, I failed, the hydrangea died, or the rose won't bloom. And it's just like, no, you're giving it another chance and you're learning as you go. And I just hate it when people get so frustrated or down because they're like, it doesn't work. And it's like, it's a living thing.
And like I said, it's a living thing. And sometimes I'm like, I actually don't even like that there. I thought in theory I would like that there, but I actually don't like that there. So I had transplanted multiple things. Some things have lived. I would say actually like 90% of the things have lived once I transplanted them. There's a couple things that haven't. But yeah, I don't know. It's been interesting because it is like every year, like I'll be like, oh, next year I'm going to do this. And I like try to take notes. I feel like that's also a big thing is like take notes throughout the year of like how they're doing.
Yeah.
Like this bloomed here, this bloomed here. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I'm just constantly learning. I'm constantly trying to read up on things and like same, I like mapped out and like hand drew on my whole yard and I like wrote what every single plant was. And then I wrote like what their watering schedule needed to be and like all of these things. And then I was like, this is too much. It's just like, I don't know. I love the hand-drawn thing, but I cannot imagine that they used to just do that.
Yeah.
Like it took me forever. And I think I had 30 sheets. I was like, here is this section. Here is this section. Here is this section,
Yeah.
But, okay. So the other thing I was going to tell you about is dahlias. I'm not even sure exactly how you say it, but, so I only did some small annual blooms this year that I just got like at the greenhouse. And same, that one says full sun. Mm-hmm. I swear to you, I got 0 blooms until it got chilly in like September. And then all of a sudden it was like, poof, and I was like, what happened? Like it was green all summer, but I couldn't ever get any blooms. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it like flourished because I think it was too hot. Mm-hmm. So you're right. Like that's something to always think about. I feel like that's actually like really great advice. But anyway, I could talk about plants.
I could too. So.
And one of my favorite things is just to go, I don't know, I'm just going to go browse the nursery.
Yep.
Aaron's like, why? You know how that's going to end up. I'm like, I know. It just makes me happy though. Yeah. It legitimately just makes me change my world upside down. I'd actually work at a nursery too. Like I think that would be so fun.
Yeah, I think you would be great at it.
Like just, I don't know, like just talking plants. In fact, I wore it last night. I kind of had forgotten I had it, but Jennifer that I used to work with at the salon, she gave me a shirt for my birthday that says something about, now I can't even remember. Something about, I don't want to talk about anything but plants or I don't know, like some like quirky saying, and I'm like, oh, this just like warms my heart. Because it is very true. I know.
I could geek out with you, that's for sure.
I
don't know if everyone wants to hear it.
No, well, and I really appreciate you always listening to me because I feel like a lot of times I'm like, I got notes for her. Like she's coming to sit in my chair to get her hair done, but I got things we need to talk about.
So we need to talk plants.
Yes, no, we love it. But oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for your time today. Thank you very much. I obviously had to cancel on you last week because I was on my deathbed. But
I'm so sorry.
Okay, so to finish up here, what advice would you have when somebody is kind of moving into that? Like, okay, I've got to like design a yard. Like, where would you not even like if they want to come to you and do that, but like where to start? Is it just like, okay, just go to Pinterest, look at magazines? Like, what would be your advice?
Well, I thought you actually gave some great advice in terms of just noticing the different areas of your yard and noticing, okay, this side is excessively shady, this side is excessively sunny, or just kind of noticing the surroundings. And maybe you don't have time to do that all year long. Sure. Maybe it is a new build and you need to get that landscape in. But then also just thinking, okay, what do I want to use this space for? Because I think if you had thought like, okay, I want in the beginning when you're thinking of pouring your pad, well, I want space to entertain and I want a hot tub and I want like that would have made that decision so much easier and probably easier to sell to your husband too.
Yeah. We knew we wanted to entertain. The hot tub was never an option.
Gotcha.
We got talked into that one. No, just joking. That was my children manifesting for years.
Yeah, but just coming up with like, okay, this is how I want to use the space. This is what I enjoy. And that's kind of where everything just starts.
Yeah.
It's just having that list of this is how I want to use this space. And then you can take that to Pinterest or wherever you want to go for further information. But just knowing the intent behind things is really crucial so that you don't end up with something that's just like, oh, well, I had a random,
totally.
thought about this space and it's not necessarily connected to all the different spaces. I think that's the biggest thing. People sometimes have a hard time not just creating these different spaces in their landscape, but connecting them as well. Because if you think about it, an outdoor space is just like an indoor space where you have different rooms. You have walls, you have floors, you have ceilings even.
Yeah.
Sometimes the ceiling's the sky, but it definitely just creates different moods and different areas and different rooms within your landscape. And then how do you connect all those together so that it feels cohesive and not just like, oh, well, we've got our fire pit in the corner and then, so that would be my biggest piece of advice is just start there.
Okay. Well, and I love because I was like, dang it, we didn't get to talk about this, but really fast, you just redid your entire yard.
Yeah.
And it is stunning. Stunning. Tell me again what that big arch thing is called.
Moon gate.
A moon gate. Oh my gosh. At least
that's what I call it.
I
think it's so fun. It's like this portal into a new realm.
Yes.
And I get so happy when I walk through it and it's only been up for a couple days.
Well, and I said like it doesn't even have like the plants on it
yet.
But I had a really good friend who she actually bought her parents' home, so like the home she grew up in, and they have by their back gate. Her and I also always take yard work stuff, but she has one that I want to say it's honeysuckle or something like that, but that hangs down. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's
it smells
gorgeous.
So good too.
Yes. Oh. And wisteria, I don't know where wisteria, but I've like seen that on other things, and now I'm like, I need a moon gate.
Yes.
Like, anyway, so tell us like just really quickly, like because you told me you've been like dreaming this up for a while. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you feel like it's because you've lived there for so long, you've like seen it enough, or was like, I don't know, like tell me kind of your process then.
So I was the landscape designer without a landscape.
Okay.
Like, it was just like, I got to the point where I just couldn't handle it anymore. It was just wall to wall carpet.
Okay.
Sorry, not carpet, grass.
I knew what you meant, but yes.
Grass that acted as carpet, basically outside. Yeah. And I just wanted to be able to have those experiences that you can have once you kind of define the different spaces and add in different elements. And I've been doing this for other people for so long that I finally was like, okay, I can sit down and do this for myself. Okay. It's hard at the end of the day when you do it, I don't know if you experience this with hair. I do. You're like I've been doing other people's hair. I just don't even want to like.
Oh, that's why my children always look like rabbit muffins. I was like, I need a haircut. I'm like, not my problem. Even though it is my problem.
Yes.
But 100%. I'm always like, I just was doing hair all day. I don't want to do your hair now.
Yeah. So that's kind of why we've lived in our home 9 years now, and that's why it's taken so long to kind of get to that point where, okay, I just had to pull the trigger. Another thing that was a catalyst was the state was doing some rebates where you could get money for like ripping your lawn out and replacing with water-wise landscaping. So I wanted to do that while that opportunity was still available. And that just kind of pushed me to get it done.
Maybe that's something you could even send me with just like a little quick blurb of whatever that is, because your mom was telling me about that as well. And I'm like, there is a lot of states that are doing that now. Mm-hmm. And so it's just called Water Wise. Is that what it is? What did you say?
So the website people can go to is Utah Water Savers.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of different rebates that you can do that in there, but the landscape one is all about just taking out that thirsty grass and replacing it with water-wise landscaping.
Okay, that's right. Okay. But yeah, you have, everything just flows so well. I love when you did your tour the other day before it snowed. I was actually like, as I was watching, I'm like, oh my gosh, and it snowed today. But you just like from the front, like how it winds around. I love your large flagstone pieces, and you have like the fire pit section, which the rest. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Like literally, like I was like, oh, I'm like salivating over here. And you're like where your garden boxes are going to be. Well, they are like set up, like just everything was like so beautiful. So I'll definitely have to post some pictures and like some of your stories on my stuff just to like show. But anyway,
Well, thank you.
So yeah, so you're essentially like, this has been 9 years in waiting, and you finally were able to design your own.
I have 2 young kids.
Yeah,
and you only have so many years where they can jump on the trampoline or where you can grow vegetables together. And I was like, I'm just sick of waiting. We're just gonna do it because there's only so many summers to enjoy.
Yeah.
Why would I wait and miss out?
I mean, you literally only get 18. And that's crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
And we don't have a trampoline. My husband is terrified of trampolines.
Oh no.
He thinks they're like death traps. But I'm like, I grew up with them my whole life. All my siblings have them. But he's always like, oh, the neighbors have them. I'm like, that's true. But yes, that's where I think you're right. When you think about what you want your space to be, like, to me, it was like, we're in the summer, we are in our yard 90% of the time. Like, that is my happy place. I go out there and eat lunch. I lay out. We sit in the hot tub, like just all the things. And I yard work all day long. I love it so much. So yeah, I love that sentiment. It's just, you're creating a space that like what you want it to be used for, I guess. Be used for. So anyway, okay, well, I do want you to come back. Maybe in the spring when things have started blooming.
Yes.
But anyway, thank you so much, seriously, for coming.
It's been a pleasure.
I know, it's been so dang fun. And I just love our chats together.